Okay, first and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Now today, as y'all can see here, this image, right, that Trump either, some say he posted this on his Truth Social Network account or whatever, something like that, or either reposted it, or whatever, but thing is, he acknowledged it, right? And I think he did post it though. But as it reads, the world will soon understand nothing can stop what is coming. Right? Where, obviously the picture of him, the world behind him, and this is true. And this can go for a lot of things, right? That's just things started running through my mind when I read this. The world will soon understand. The world will soon understand what? Right? Soon the world will understand that Esau, the so-called white man, is the wicked. Right? Right now, only people who understand that are, those in this truth, right? The people that the Lord has awoken. But soon, when things come, as it says, nothing can stop what is coming. People are going to start to really wake up and realize that this is the wicked, right? When martial law rolls in, and all hell breaks loose, that's when people are going to understand. A lot of people are seeing that now with the way they're moving. Look at how Trump's moving. He's moving like a dictator. We might as well call him one, right? But soon people are going to realize that they're the wicked. A vast majority are going to realize, right? Mainly dealing with Jake. They're going to realize who their enemy is. Because now you have most Jake, you see videos of them coming against his truth, pleading for Esau. But when Jacob's trouble break out, which nobody can stop, no one can stop what's coming, right? When Jacob troubles breaks out, Jake is going to realize that this is the enemy, But as it says, nothing can stop what is coming. Right now, Trump, acknowledges this as to what Esau has planned, right? But we know that no one can stop what's coming because it's the will of the Lord, And what is coming? Judgment, the end of this world, right? Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And Yahweh Shai is coming. Our Savior is returning. The mark of beast is coming. Jacob's trouble is coming. So there's a lot coming that nothing can stop, right? Because it's all the will of the Lord. So this is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 27. For the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai of hosts, has purposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? Right? Now, if we look into this word disannul, it says parar, to break, frustrate, to break, violate, to frustrate, make ineffectual. To be frustrated, to be broken, to break, to bid, shatter, to split, crack through, to be split, be cracked, to break, make void, defeat, disannul, disappoint, frustrate, come to naught. Right? So ultimately, if the Lord of hosts has purposed it, right? So if the Lord said it's going to happen, right? Who can make it come to naught? And this is a rhetorical question because the answer is no one. So when the Lord has ordained something to happen, you best believe it's going to happen. There's nothing anything or anyone can do to stop it. From here, Let's get Romans chapter 9, verse 10. Romans chapter 9, verse 10. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by her father Isaac, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of the Most High, according to election, might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. Right? So it wasn't between what the children did, why the Lord chose Jacob and not Esau, but because it was his choice. Right? It was his will. That's what he wanted to happen, so it happened. You know, it says not of works, but of him that calleth. Right? That was the Lord that called that decision to be made. He chose Jacob to be a people unto him and to hate Esau. You know, his will happens. Right? So just as this photo says, nothing can stop what is coming. Right? Nobody's going to be able to stop the judgment that's coming. No one is going to be able to stop Yahweh Shai from returning. No one is going to be able to stop. You know, Esau is not going to be able to stop their world from being taken down. Right? Their rulership. Now, if we jump ahead a couple chapters. Oh, Salakia. Let's go back. It's Romans 9, verse 19. We start at verse 18. Romans 9, chapter 18. Therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will be. Salakia, and whom he will, he hardeneth. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Right? So basically, Paul is saying, they're going to say unto him, why, if no one resists the will of the Lord, why does he find fault in people? Like, why does he hate Esau? You know, why does he find a need to judge people if they're doing his will? Basically. You know, but verse 20, nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against the Most High? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Right, and this is going into those who question what the Lord does. Right? Just as he said, thou would say unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? So what Paul's saying is, who are you to be questioning the Lord? Right? And that's like extremely disrespectful. You know, like say for example, you have a parent, or let's just say you're a parent or like an older sibling or something, right? And your child or your younger sibling, like say you're 18 and they're like 7, right? You tell them to do something and they talking back. You gonna want to smack them, right? So you can imagine how the Lord feels when we as mortals question him and talk back. Talking back and questioning and mighty, almighty God. The disrespect is multiplied abundantly at that point. You know, so don't question the Lord's will, right? At the end of the day, well, we know that the Lord is a righteous power, you know, and there's a reason for everything that he's doing. You know, we just have to believe and pray that we be on the good end of that stick, right? So I want to get Isaiah chapter 55 verse 9. It reads, Isaiah chapter 55 verse 9, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Yeah, that's right. So once again, who are you to be questioning the Lord? The way we think is it's like an ant compared to a planet, right? We're thinking, let's say the smartest man had a freaking 2000 IQ, right? The Lord's is infinite. It's a never-ending number. So for you to even sit there and question him on why he's doing what he's doing, or why he has this play out the way it plays out, or so you can only imagine what the Lord feels when that happens, right? He might just want to kill you on the spot. Just like how a parent might want to, like, I don't know if this has happened to any of y'all out there before. It's definitely happening to me. But when I was younger and I spoke back to my mom, she would either like flick me in my mouth or like just pop me in it, right? So just like your parent would do that to you, the Lord will do the same. But instead, it could be a very harsh judgment, right? So the Lord's, thoughts on a way higher scale, his mind, his intelligence on a way higher scale than we can even perceive, right? So who are you to question him? But continuing, for as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. So once again, going into what? The Lord's will always plays out. His words don't go out void. Right? Let's look into this word void. Rayaquam. Vainly, emptily, in empty condition, emptily, and vain, without effect. Vainly, right? So the Lord's words don't go out without effect. Since beginning of school, where they teach you cause and effect, right? That cause would be the Lord's word. Because the Lord said so, the effect happens. Right? The cause is the Lord said it's going to rain tomorrow, it rains tomorrow. The Lord's never going to say it's going to rain tomorrow and it doesn't rain tomorrow. So his words don't go out without effect. They don't go out void. They accomplish everything they're said to accomplish, right? But it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in anything whereto I sent it, right? And you really can't say that any better than it's already written, and this is the book of Isaiah, right? How long ago was this written? And again, that goes to show you the power and intelligence of the Lord. Let's go back to the book of Romans. It's chapter 3. Romans chapter 3 verse 3. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? The Most High forbid. Yeah, let the Most High be true, but every man a liar, as it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. Right? So let the Most High be true, and every man be a liar. And why is that? Because his words don't go out void. So even if it seems something so unbelievable, so impossible, hey, as it says, let the Most High be true and every man a liar. And really speaking on this truth, right? The believing that the UFOs you see flying in the sky are actually the chariots of the Lord. The aliens are so-called black men, afros, and beards. We're the true people of Israel. The Lord's going to return back with thousands of angels. That stuff may seem hard to believe. But for those that the Lord hasn't given that spirit unto, those that he hasn't peeled that veil back, so let the Most High be true, but every man a liar, right? Because the Most High's truth is the truth. His words are the truth, and that's just what it is. Even if it goes against everything this world has taught you, then everyone in this world is a liar. Everything you done learned is all a lie then. And the Most High's word is the truth. But then again, John chapter 14 verse 17, even we start at verse 16. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. Right? So only those with this comforter, the Holy Spirit, are going to perceive and hearken and believe. It's not for everybody. This truth is a real blessing. That's why we're constantly giving our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak Wadash, just for even being a part of this, right? Just for even being able to understand and believe. But going back to Romans, like Most High forbid, let the Most High be true, but every man a liar, as it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. You're going to overcome when thou art judged. And those who, Lord willing, we be of that elect, right? They are going to overcome, right? Those who are in this truth, believing, pushing out that faith, as well as the works coupled with it, enduring, they're going to overcome, right? They're going to get that victory, as Apostle Ariamlab was going into. That salvation. They're going to overcome the judgment the Lord brings, right? The judgment through Esau, Jacob's trouble, right? And receive that salvation, that everlasting life, the crowns, the glory. And that's what we strive to be a part of. Let's get Mark chapter 14 verse 32. Right? Again, going into how the Lord's will always plays out, right? His words don't go out void. When he says something's going to happen, or when he has purposed it, who can disannul it? No one. This is Mark chapter 12 verse 32. And the scribe said unto him, Well, Master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one power, and there is none other but he, and to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding. Salakia, chapter 14 verse 32. Yahweh Shai and Gethsemane. And they came to a place which was named Gethsemane, and he saith to his disciples, Sit ye here while I shall pray. And he taketh with him Peter and James and John, and began to be sore amazed, and to be very heavy, and saith unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful unto death. Tarry ye here and watch. Right? And why was his soul sorrowful unto death? Because the Lord knew what was coming to him. Right? He knew how he was going to be crucified. Right? How someone was going to betray him. How his own people were going to take him up. The Lord knew all of that was coming to him, so he was sorrowful. Nobody wants that to happen to them. Tarry ye here and watch. And he went forward a little and fell on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. Right, so he said if it was possible that he wouldn't have to go through that. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt. Right? So he prayed that he didn't have to go through it, basically. Right? Take away this cup from me. But then he says what? Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt. Right? Because it's according to the Most High's will. Yahweh Shai understood that. So we do as well. Again, going back to the image, nothing can stop what is coming, right? Because it's the will of the Lord. Yahweh Shai didn't question it. He knew it was the will. He accepted it. Yeah, he asked for it to be taken away, but he only said that if it was the will of his Father, which it wasn't, obviously. So nothing can stop the will of the Lord, right? But Esau is going to try and stop the will of the Lord. Let's get Revelation chapter 17, verse 14. It says, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Right, so these shall make war with the Lamb. Going into, if you read up the rest of the chapter, going into what Esau, these other nations and their armies, what they're going to fight, they're going to try and fight against that Lamb, being Yahweh Shai and his holy angels, right? And the Lamb shall overcome them, right? Again, going into that word overcome, meaning to what? Nikeo, to conquer, to carry off the victory, come off victorious. Of Hamashiach, victorious over all his foes. Of Hamashiachians that hold fast their faith even unto death against the power of their foes and temptations and persecutions. When one is arraigned or goes to law to win the case, maintain one's cause, overcome, conquer, prevail, get the victory. Right? These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb, Yahweh Shai, shall overcome them. Right? So he's going to defeat, the armies of those nations that try to fight against him. They try to stop the will of the Lord. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Right? Going into what? The whore being here, America, Babylon the Great. Right? And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast were her allies. And they're going to what? And shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Going into when the Lord puts his spirit on them, right, to launch their nuclear warheads over here at America. Verse 17, for the Most High hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. Right? So the Lord got them cahooting with the beast, with America, Babylon the Great. Most of these, their fellow nations, they don't even like America, right? They're just in it for the benefits. Ultimately, what? The Lord got them in it. Until his word shall be fulfilled, right? So when the Lord puts in their mind to launch their missiles, that's when they're going to turn. That's when they're going to launch them. But until then, they agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Right? The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. If not, where and who is he? I might have butchered that, Salakia. But that's Esau. But focusing with the topic, it's the will of the Lord being played out. Right, the will that's coming to Esau, being burnt with this fire, right? The missiles and the lasers from the Lord's chariots. You know, they're going to be overcome, right? They're going to be defeated easily. You know, and we're going to read that as well. Here in 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, start at verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night. Right? So this is a vision that Esdras is receiving. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea that had moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, and when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. Now that man is who? The Messiah, our Savior, Yahushai. Right? And when he turned his countenance to look, his countenance going into his face, all the things trembled that were seen under him. Right? Because when not only are people going to be trembling, right, but the trees, the waters, you know, the earth, right? But that sight of Yahushai up there in the sky, you know, with all the angels, that's going to be fearful. Verse 4, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they that burned, that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire, right? And this isn't going into, you know, Yahushai being a fire breather, but, you know, he was probably, you know, you can imagine this vision that Esdras is seeing. You know, Yahushua is giving commands, right? And you got chariot laser fire firing down, you know, as well as, you know, missiles. Verse 5, after this I beheld, and the fact that it says, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire, right, going into how they were burned with the lasers. You know, you see how the earth is after a fire is lit there. It's just burnt and dead. Right? And that's how it's going to be. That's how a lot of people are going to get. Verse 5, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Right? And this is going into those armies like we just read in Revelation 17. Right? How they're going to fight. You know, they're going to be gathered. Right? Why? Because World War III is going to be going on. You know, and then Yahushua is going to pop up out the sky. And they're going to see him. Right? Hey, man, we got to put our differences aside and fight him. You know, at the end of the day, we're all mankind. That's the alien. We need to come together and defeat him. You know, that's going to be the spirit the Lord puts on these armies, right, to fight against the Lord. Right, when it says, out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue that man that came out of the sea. Again, that man being Yahushai, right? He came out of the sea, not meaning he came out of the, you know, the Pacific Ocean, but the sea being the heavens, right? And we read that in Genesis chapter 1, here in verse 6, right? And the Most High said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And the Most High made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Right? So you got the waters up there, the firmament, then the waters down here, which is going into that other dimension, right? That Yahushua came out of, right? It's referred to as waters, the sea. You know, so that man that came out of the sea, speaking of Yahushua. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. And that mountain going into his chariot. Right, grave the mountain. That word grave means to like to edge out of. Right, so it's like he edged out a piece of a mountain and flew upon it. or going into his chariot. Verse 7, but I would have seen the region or place whereof the hill was graven, and I could not. Right, so basically what Ezra is saying is he would have seen where the chariot ended and where it began. Like he would have seen the edges or the outer parts of it, but he couldn't. Going into the scale of the Lord Yahweh's chariot, right? Just how huge it was. He couldn't even see the ending. Verse 8, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And again, these armies, right? They're going to be afraid of that, right? This is something they've never seen before, right? This huge chariot and other chariots or so-called UFOs, right? Just appear out of nowhere, out of the sky. So they're going to be scared as hell. But what? We're so afraid and yet durst fight, because the Lord's going to put the spirit on them to fight back, right? Or try and fight back. You know, you're not just going to let them run away. You know, because even if they tried, the Lord would have got them anyways. Like, it's not helping. Right? But the Lord's going to put the spirit on them to fight back. You know, that's why it says they made war with the Lamb. But what? He overcame them. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. Right? So you can imagine this, right? Yahushua seeing these huge armies, right, coming to try and fight him. And he's probably just standing there. Right, unfazed. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Again, going into what? The lasers from the Lord's chariots. Right? He probably set a command and just what does it says? Flaming breath, sparks, tempest. You can just imagine the type of fire that came out, right? You can just imagine how it looked like. It was probably a sight to behold, you know. Verse 11, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest. Right? So you can just imagine the type of heat that's packing, right? It probably wasn't even hitting like fire for real. Probably a whole new type of element, like some fire with a temperature that we've never even thought was possible. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived. Right? So he just burnt them out of existence. But only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was so afraid. You know, and that's why what scripture speaks about, you know, the smoke of their torment going up for forever and ever. Right, when all is done, all the lasers and the fires from the chariots rain out, that the nuclear missiles hit, that smoke is going to go up for a very long time. Right, because of the what's the word? Intensity. Right, because of the intensity of the heat, the flames, the fire, the missiles, just all that intensity. And as well, you got to think, what, you have gas stations here, cars here, a lot of wood, trees, all that stuff is just going to be burning. Right, it's just more and even more intensifying the flame. You know, so that's why the smoke is going to go up forever and ever, right? And we read that in Revelations 14, here in verse 9. You start at verse 9. doomed for worshippers of the beast. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, that mark going into the RFID micro chip, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. What did we just read? Well, the Lord's going to return back with thousands of angels and burn this place to a crisp, right? And burn that multitude that try to fight him to a crisp. But ultimately, that's going to be coming to the entirety of America, right? As well as other places, but mainly dealing with here is America. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Right? So yeah, don't take that. Don't worship this beast, his image. Definitely don't take that mark. You take that mark, it's game over. So going back, this is what's coming. Right? And guess what? Nothing can stop what is coming. Trump posting that trying to be funny. Whole time, this is what's coming to him. Right? And he can't stop it. Not just him, but all of these heathen. Mainly you, Esau. Your public enemy number one. But continuing, verse 12, afterward saw I the same man come down from the mountain, and called unto him another peaceable multitude. And there came much people unto him, whereof some were glad, some were sorry, and some of them were bound, and other some brought of them that were offered. Then was I sick through great fear, and awake and said. Right, so the peaceable multitude here is different from what's being said in verse 13. Right, this peaceable multitude here is just Israelites. Right, in verse 13 you have Israelites and other nations. So verse 13, and there came much people unto him, whereof some were glad, going into the elect Israelites. Right, some were sorry, going into those who weren't of the elect, and some of them were bound, going into these other nations, these heathens. Because we're going to take them as servants. And others some brought of them that were offered. Then was I sick through great fear, and I awaked and said. Now it says, and others some brought of them that were offered, right? And this is going into the Israelites who were in these other, nations around the world being brought to the Lord. But dealing with here, it says, and there came much people unto him, whereof some were glad and some were sorry. Right? That goes into, goes back to Daniel 12, right? How it says, some woke into everlasting life and some to sorry, shame and everlasting contempt. We just go grab it. I know I'm butchering it. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, the time of the end. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. There shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Right, going into that time of trouble, right? But the Lord's elect, they're going to be saved out of it. Those written in that book, that book of life. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Right, and those that awake, going into the people who have died, right? Because the Lord's going to bring everyone back for the judgments. And as it says, some to everlasting life, going into them, and there came much unto Salakia, and there came much people unto him, whereof some were glad. Right, those were the ones who got that everlasting life. Right, some people who didn't die, who were preserved through everything, but you have some elect members who are going to die. Right? But what? They're going to be brought back to life, to everlasting life. You know? And some to shame and everlasting contempt. Right? And those are going to be the ones who weren't, the Israelites who weren't part of the Lord's elect. Right? Some were sorry. Right? They were sorry, you know, and shameful for how they were. Right? For the reason that they weren't a part of the Lord's elect. You know, they're going to be shameful of that. They're going to be sorry of that. And some of them were bound going into these other nations, right? Because when the Lord comes back, returns, you know, and refreshes the earth, they're going to be our servants. You know, and we read that, see Isaiah chapter 14, here in verse 1. Israel's taunt. For the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. Right? So the Lord's going to put us back into our own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now, the word strangers here is not going into these other nations. Right? If we look into here, the Hebrew word gar, a sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights, stranger, alien, sojourner. And you know, it's going into Israelites who were, you know, in these other nations, basically, right? So they would be a stranger unto Israel. You know, in the homeland, they would be strangers because they weren't from the homeland. You know, just basically how we are. You know, they were strangers because they weren't in their nationality. Let me say that. Right? They didn't know they were Israelites. They were living like the people they were from. The people where they were born from, right? Wherever they were in the world, you know. So they were strangers, and just how we were at one point, right? There was a point in time where no one who was an Israelite knew that they were an Israelite, right? You know, we were strangers to our ways, to the Lord, you know. But through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, we were brought back. But continuing, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Right? So, and the people shall take them, going into us, taking these, you know, these heathens, and bringing them to our place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord. Right? Being over there, what? Israel, you know, Jerusalem, and you know, our land. And they shall take them captives, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Right? And all of these other nations have had us as captives at one point. You know, we read that in First Maccabees. You know, so we're going to be taking all of them captive, right? We're going to have slaves from all nations, and they're all going to be under us. We're going to be the only ones ruling, right? Even though there's going to be a hierarchy, right? The Most High, you know, Yahweh Shai, his angels, of course, you know, King David. You know, you have the 144,000 elect men under that. You know, but altogether, Israel is going to be the only authority. You know, so as it says, and some of them were bound, is going into these heathen nations, starting with Esau, Edom, public enemy number one, the people who the Most High hates, the people who we hate, our enemies. By continuing, and others some brought of them that were offered. Again, going into the Israelites around the world being brought back to the Lord. Staying in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 9. It reads, "Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, thy power, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee." Right? So you're going to have these other nations. They're going to bring the Israelites from wherever they are back to the Lord, back to the Holy Land. And it's not going to be, they're not going to be in chains. They're not going to be looking rough. As it says, from far, their silver and their gold with them, and that goodly apparel, right, when they return back. And we jump ahead a couple chapters, chapter 66, verse 20. "And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai out of all nations, upon horses and in chariots and in litters and upon mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord." Right? So they're going to bring the Israelites back to the Holy Land. As like an offering, like it said. What? "And others some brought of them that were offered." Right? That link through them being offered, shows you that this is what it's talking about. But Esdras says, "Then was I sick through great fear, and awaked." This was a vision of prophecy. Meaning what? That it's coming. And no one can stop what's coming. Nothing can stop what's coming. But this is what we look forward to. Right? The day of the Lord was turned. Those who truly understand what it means. We look forward to that. We look forward to Jacob's trouble. We look forward to the mark of the beast. Right? Lord willing, obviously, we be of that elect that doesn't have to take it. That doesn't take it. So but yeah, we're hastening the day of the Lord's coming. Because we want to be in the kingdom. Because we want to be with Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Because we want a world in righteousness. Right? Because we want everlasting life. Because we want the glory. And all the promises. But I want to close out in Ezekiel, right? Because judgment to Esau and judgment to this world isn't the only thing that's coming, right? We have those promises, right? We have the kingdom. So let's end off on that. This is Ezekiel chapter 37, start at verse 15. Reunion of Judah and Israel. The word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai came again unto me, saying, "Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. And join them one to another to one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand." Right? So Joseph, stick of Ephraim, that being whether the head of the northern tribe, and Judah being the head of the southern tribe. So it's going into the joining of the northern and the southern tribes, right? Us becoming one people again. We're not going to be split anymore. There won't be that wall of partition between us. "And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? say unto them, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks were on the right, and shall be in thine hand before their eyes. Right? So he's combining the nation once again. We're going to be a whole nation. Yeah, we were all Israelites, right? But we were split up at one point. We even had civil wars, right? You had the northern kingdom coming up against the southern kingdom. You read about that in the book of Kings, Chronicles. But yeah, you read about those things. Isaiah. But continuing. And I say unto them, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. And that's not going to happen until the Lord returns. And that goes to show you how, Israel is scattered throughout the world. Right? They still are. And that also goes to show you how the people over there in Israel aren't the real Israelites. The Lord didn't put the baggage there. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their power. Because of what? The Lord's going to cleanse us. He's going to make us perfect, right? The laws are going to be in our inward parts. So we're not going to be sinning anymore. As it says, no more idols, no more detestable things, no more transgressions. Right? He's going to cleanse us, purify us. So shall they be my people, and I will be their power, the Davidic kingdom. And David, my servant, shall be king over them. And they shall all have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. Right? And this is all end time prophecy. Which is letting you know that those people over there in Jerusalem, them not the real Jews. That's not the real Israelites. King David is not over there with them. Those people aren't perfect. They're not purified. They're quite literally the opposite. Right? They're not the Lord people, man. And that right there is why he got to return. Right? You think they're not finna get judged for that? Over there lying, saying they the Lord people. The shit they did to us when they're literally his enemies. Can't wait for the Lord to return, bro. Verse 25. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forever. My tabernacle also shall be with them. I will be their power, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, do sanctify Israel. When this right is letting you know that the Lord is not for all nations. He just said, and the heathen shall know that I, the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, do sanctify Israel. Right here, he's letting you know who he mess with, who he's for, who his people are. When my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Right? So, and this is what we look forward to. Being in the kingdom, being perfect, being with the Lord, You know, being with King David, living a carefree, worryless life. You know, but this is what's coming. And again, nothing can stop what's coming, right? Not everything coming is bad, right? And truly, nothing coming is bad. You know, it's all needed. The judgment is not like the judgment isn't justified, right? But what's coming after that is a world of righteousness, man. You're not gonna have to set your alarm for 5:30 in the morning to get ready for work, right? You're not gonna have to stress about if you have enough money to pay your bills and eat tonight. None of that. But that's what's coming, and we can't wait. And nobody can stop it from coming to us. You know, so with that being said, once more, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Ruach Wadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect.